Outstanding. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power of Our Story Thursday evening coffee and conversation. I want to thank Sarah Carell, founder of the Power of Our Story, for allowing me to facilitate tonight's conversation. The Power of Our Story Coffee and Conversation welcomes military veterans and active duty service members, first responders, both active and retired, which Sarah refers to as our protectors. And we also include bridge builders to join us for coffee and conversation. This forum is just a place to process the journey in safety with others who get it, or like-minded folks. Self-care isn't a one-size-fits-all. What works for you might not work for me. Keep searching for the right fit, no matter how difficult and exhausting it may be. Provide yourself with positive people, education, tools, and resources so you are able to live a happy, healthy life. Tonight's storyteller is Shawn Thomas, the founder and national director of First Responder Conferences. Shawn retired from the King County Sheriff's Office in Seattle, Washington in April of this year after serving 25 years. Her dad retired after 30 years, and her husband, Jeff, who is sitting next to her right now, retired after 32 years with the same department. Shawn retired as a wellness and resiliency detective, therapy canine handler, and peer support team lead. Prior to that, she was an explosive detection canine handler for 7 years. During her career, Shawn also worked patrol as an undercover detective riding the Metro buses, in the warrant unit, in transit patrol, and was a member of the peer support team for 16 years total. In September 2016, Shawn's peer support captain suggested she organize a health and wellness conference for first responders and their families. The conference was a huge success, and first responders reached out for assistance. That is when Shawn realized how important the conference was and how critical wellness education was needed. Other departments and organizations also saw how beneficial the conference was and asked her to organize a conference for them. In the first year, they organized 5 conferences in Seattle, North Carolina, Florida, and right here in sunny Arizona. Now they have had 30 conferences and have many more planned in the coming year. Shawn and Jeff are passionate about helping first responders because they have experienced their own difficult times and want to help guide others so they can maintain an enjoyable career and live a healthy life. So now that we know a little bit about you, Shawn, and your husband there, go ahead and just share your story, please.
Well, thanks for having us. And I think you said it all, so we can just make it a wrap.
You're not getting off that easy.
Oh, man. Yeah, you shared a lot of our story. Hired with the King County Sheriff's Office in 97, joined peer support in 2006. I enjoyed, responding to all the critical incidents, but helping our officers through that, them and their families through that process. Fast forward to 2015. Jeff had been on the department for about 27 years, on the SWAT team for about 18 years, was undergoing some organizational stress as well as cumulative stress, and was coping with alcohol. It got to a point where he said, I need help. And I said, great, now what? We didn't feel comfortable reaching out to the department because we weren't sure exactly what that was going to look like. So we searched and found a confidential resource, which was harder than we thought it was going to be, but we did find one. We got Jeff the help that he needed. But during that whole process, we realized if we're both first responders and we don't know where to get help, there's got to be other people out there. So my peer support captain suggested we, and when I say we, he meant me, put on a mental health and wellness conference for first responders and their families. And I thought, well, sure, how hard can a conference be? And then I realized it was a lot of work, but we had around 150 people attend, at least 5 people that I know of after the conference reached out for help. So it was clear to us that there's a lot of first responders suffering in silence. And we knew that our department really didn't have any proactive wellness programs. We had peer support, which was more reactive. I found this to be true with several first responders that we were talking with around the country. And then people just started asking, hey, I really like what you're doing. Can you put on a conference here? And so we try to work with the local boots on the ground folks to make that happen. Because every time we have a conference, we get people that tell us how beneficial it was. We've had people call and say that it saved their life. And so we became really passionate about what we were doing. And now we just finished our 31st conference, and we have several more planned in the future.
Absolutely. And I've attended one last year here in Tempe, Arizona, and you will be here in December, which I will also still be attending. Does Jeff want to share anything as part of the story? We're open to hear, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like we said, this is a safe space. And anything that you feel comfortable sharing, obviously we appreciate vulnerability, but we understand, if you don't want to share, that's fine too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Like Shawn said, I worked for the sheriff's office for 32 years, and I'm thoroughly and utterly retired and don't need to do anything else. She mentioned our hardship, and I guess luckily for me, I didn't really the stigma didn't bother me like it can people, and we're trying to work through that, obviously, to lessen that thing every day, and I think we have. My job with our conferences is I'm in a support role. There's no doubt about it, which I think is great. Whatever Shawn needs me to do, I do. She's done a wonderful job. We have a great group of volunteers that help us out, and can't give them enough credit. And it's been very fulfilling. I mean, like I said, or like Shawn said, we've obviously helped some people out, which is, if you can help one person, that's the goal, and we have. So it makes it easier to keep going. And like Shawn says, as long as we're benefiting somebody, we're going to keep doing the conferences.
Absolutely. And like I said, I've attended, and it's great because you have a nice variety of presenters. Presenters talk about financial stuff and coping and breaking the stigma and everything. So I really appreciate the conference format and everything that you guys have. Has anybody else on the panel, real quick, attended a first responder conference? You don't know what you're missing. So I suggest you plan to come out to sunny Tempe, which is right next to Phoenix, Arizona, December 1st and 2nd for the first responder conference that will be held. I've heard there's some great speakers lined up. I'm not sure.
Maybe you.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, I am
That's
one.
right.
I forgot. But yes, I will be sharing my story. Looking forward to that. Shawn, do you have anything else that you want to share about your specific story? If there's anything that helped you besides seeing the need for some type of training or starting a program outside of the reactive peer support?
Yeah, I don't know. My entire life, I've just always been like a natural helper. Like we even had, and that's what it was called. It was called natural helper in high school, where you were able to talk to some kids that just wanted to talk, right? And I mean, now that I think about it, like it's amazing that they actually even had a program like that. But I was part of that, and then obviously I got into law enforcement to help. But when I got into law enforcement, I didn't realize, I knew that I would be helping the community, but didn't realize what a need to help our own. I mean, there was such a need that with the peer support program, I just really enjoyed being part of peer support, because all of the things that we endure day in and day out are not normal. And you really need to process through those events throughout your career, or you fill your box and it overflows. And, I think Jeff kind of endured some of that. And I know that I have too. And there's just no way of, eventually it's going to overflow. So, yeah, Jeff and I, being both in law enforcement, personalities struggled at times. But I think it was refreshing that we were both in the same profession. And I know a lot of people say, you know, if you're in the same profession, you're going to get a divorce for sure. But we haven't, and we don't plan on it. Jeff says if I leave, he's going with. So, but yeah, we just, I don't know. I enjoy helping. I just enjoy helping, period. And like Jeff said, as long as we can do that, we're just going to continue to do whatever we can. And if people, you know, keep on coming to the conferences, we'll just keep on putting them on. So it's been a journey. I've wanted to definitely quit at times because it is a lot of work, but I'm grateful and thankful that I'm retired now and I can focus my attention on my passion. And so yeah, life is good. Life is good to get through the 25 years. And I know, you know, people like Jeff do it longer than I do. And but 25 years was enough for me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And real quick, also, I noticed you say, you know, it's for the families and stuff like that. Do you get a lot of family member participation at your conferences? And have you heard feedback from them?
So we encourage family members to attend, adult family members, right? Because a lot of information that's shared there is not suitable for, you know, children. But we do, I would like to see more spouses attend. I think one of the issues is that most first responders don't go home and say, oh, hey, great, you know, there's this great conference, this wellness conference, and, you know, I think we should attend. I think more first responders kind of hide what's going on in the real world just because, you know, secondary trauma, and just, it's not things that you really want to bring home. But we do hear a lot that people are thankful that we include spouses because they aren't really included in, you know, training, right? We send our people to all different types of training, but we never include the spouses. And we always say at the beginning, oh, you're part of the family. I never once received, I mean, I know that we work for the same department, but nothing was ever sent home to me as a spouse saying, hey, you know what, we're having this event, or, you know, it just, I feel like there's a huge disconnect with the department and the spouses. And so we try to encourage them to attend, to learn what it is that their loved one endures day in and day out, and maybe to help understand. I mean, we have a lot of communication, training sections in our conference. And so, you know, we're hoping that you don't have to go home and explain all of the gory details or anything, but you at least have to learn how to communicate, and not leave your spouse in the dark. So yeah.
Can I ask you, or can I say something? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I'm part of the Wounded Blue. So we're the largest, we're the largest charitable police organization in the country. So for my accident, I had all the resources in the world. I was married. I had 3 beautiful children. Unfortunately, I lost everything. I lost my career, I lost my house, I lost my marriage, I lost my kids. But anyways, the moral of my story is, so the Wounded Blue saved my life. I had every resource in my department. My department treated me like gold. You know, I was on SWAT. It doesn't matter what unit I was on, but just in reference to your husband, you know, I was on SWAT. I was on road patrol. You know, and I spent my whole life there. So when I was in the hospital, I did 10 months brain rehab. The chief, the actual chief was calling my spouse, the calling me. They were there for me. They, you know, making sure that I had a ride, because I couldn't drive, I couldn't see. They were making sure I was getting rides to brain therapy. They were making sure that I was getting this and I was getting that. So with the Wounded Blue, what we do is, there was last year there was 17 of us that helped 2,976 cops. There's only 17 of us. So we came up with an idea, and one of them, and I won't say whose idea it was, but one of the ideas, I remember my wife telling me that when she went home, because she was in my car, she just got back from the CDC and she saw me hit by the car. She came home and they offered to give her a ride home, and she told me she dropped everything and just laid on the ground crying, and there was nobody there for her. So I remember one of the things that I brought up, one of the programs we started, is who's the real component of the house, not the first responder. And we always, as first responders, we train, and I'm just going to say, and men and women both are equal first responders. I'm just going to use my circumstance. So my wife knew when command called, you're careful what you say. You're careful what you say. We groom our wives. Well, we also groom our children. So I remembered we started talking about what more can we do. So we started the Spouses of the Wounded Blue. So what the Spouses of the Wounded Blue are actual spouses of police officers, so that these officers were traumatically injured, and cops want to talk to cops. Cops do not want to talk to doctors. They don't want to talk to anybody else because they haven't seen it. They haven't experienced it. So we started with the Spouses of the Wounded Blue. Well, my daughter looked at me, and she was 13 years old, and she said, "Dad, everybody was there for you." And she goes, "You guys are talking about creating the Spouses of the Wounded Blue." She said, "Who was there for us?" She said, "All I wanted to do, because I had all these electrodes and I was unconscious for weeks and I couldn't see." She said, "All I wanted to do was," because we groom our children too. My kids know when they go to school, they don't sit with their back to the door. My kids know when they go to school that they look for where they're going to go, how they're going to get out. So they ask, "Well, what about us, Dad? What about us? What about the kids of the Wounded Blue?" So one thing that we're working on with the Wounded Blue, and I'm just throwing it out there, is we forget about the spouse. The spouse, when we're injured, the spouse takes care of us. The spouse takes care of the children. The spouse takes care of the bills, the family, and then we forget about the kids, because the kids, they just simply want to color. They want to play video games. They want to be kids. And we groom our kids as cops. They want to play with other kids that are cops, and they want to play with other kids. So I love your idea. And it's just something that we are starting with the Wounded Blue. And it's something that I'm trying to push out there as well. Spouses need spouses. Children of cops need children of cops too. So thank you. I just wanted to put that out there. I didn't mean to take so long.
No,
absolutely.
good.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Aaron. And, that might be a great opportunity for the Wounded Blue to be a resource partner at the December 1st and 2nd conference.
Well, we would love
Arizona,
to.
so you can help get that word
and the
out.
beautiful thing is, I lost my house. I lost my family. I lost everything because and I'm no different than anybody else. I'm no victim. I'm actually blessed, because what I do is I take my injury and I travel the country and I talk about it. And it's hard, it's hard to deal with. So I would love to be a part of that. I would love to talk to whoever schedules that. And I really would. I would like to take my tragedy and put it out there.
Absolutely. So I think, again, the power of connection, the power of our story, making things happen.
Yep,
and,
yes, sir.
All
Yes, sir.
joking aside, the temperature here and the weather in Arizona in December is great.
Well, my uncle has a house on Lake Havasu, so we got a place to go.
Outstanding. Well, I think unless Shawn or Jeff have something else specific that they want to share for us to take home, then I'll open it up to questions and comments from the group.
I'm good.
Well, thank you both for your service, your many years of service, and your family there in the first responder realm. And I see Janet has her hand up.
I do. And being a spouse first, and then falling into my job with the RCMP. My husband was an RCMP member, I think for about 10 years before I joined. But I'll tell you, I remember the first time I came home late. I'd stay at work late, and I was in the admin comm center then and doing all kinds of cipher stuff and that. And I came home late, and he said, "Did you put in for overtime?" And I went, "Voluntary overtime." I had heard that for years when he was home late, voluntary overtime. And then another time he phoned me at work and the kids were away and it was night, and he says, it's lonely at home when you're not home. And so, it's when you talk about you guys as a couple and working for the same department, we've been married for 50 years. We were married before he joined the force, but that was a turning point with us because we both got an eye opener of what was going on the other side of the life. And so having the spouses, including the spouses, I've lived on both sides, and they need to know a little bit because the vicarious trauma is definitely there, and support needs to be there. And so I'm really happy to hear that you guys are taking care of that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Janet. All right, Terry, I see your hand up.
First of all, I want to thank both of you for coming on and sharing and moving forward with this program to help so many others that do need help, because there aren't really any programs out there for the families and the resources that law enforcement needs, first responders need. Jeff, I really want to commend you for reaching out for help and getting sober, especially on the job. I actually got sober when I was 19. I got on the job when I was 23. My husband, when I started dating him, I shared with him that I don't drink or anything. My alcohol wasn't my first choice. He actually stopped when we met. He stopped drinking. So I was lucky enough not to experience that nightmare in my relationship. But I have met plenty of officers on the job who I clearly see they have an issue, the problem with the drinking and the whole thing. And because I know that the ego gets in the way along with the addiction, I would say, I'm just guessing, but over 90% don't reach out for help. They think they can handle it on their own, which is really sad. So I really want to commend you for when you needed it. You spoke up, you shared with Shawn. So thank you guys for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Terry. And First Responder Conferences was just in Boston, right, Shawn?
I was just going to tell Terry that we were just there last week. So we missed you. Sorry.
Yeah, I wish I knew.
And I knew I should have let you know, Terry. So I'll take a little bit of heat on that one myself.
Oh, Daniel. Wow.
My bad. Chaplain Stewart, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Shawn. I've followed you there on LinkedIn for quite a while and seen a lot about the conferences. I'm third generation first responder. Jeff, I don't know if you might have known or met my dad. He was Mick Stewart.
Absolutely. Played golf with him.
Oh, all right. Yep. So, I grew up in that household. I like to tell people that if you look up cop in the dictionary, there's a picture of my dad. I affectionately call him Deputy Dad. I've never really had any conversations with my dad about his service and how that affected him. Old Scotsman, doesn't really open up about those things. He spent all those years in the sex crimes unit, and in homicide and robbery. I'm sure his bucket got really full, and I know that it was only in the last couple of years that he stopped drinking. I still would like to sit down with the old man and have that conversation with him, because I went 30 years and survived a suicide attempt and still never spoke to another human being about what I'd seen and what I'd gone through. And now, having become a chaplain and going through my peer support training, I see, even though, agencies have come so far. I mean, I joined the fire department in 82, and I remember you know, CISM back then was suck it up. The next call's coming, and you need to be ready for it. That is a direct quote from my first station lieutenant at Station 1 out there on 360th. But there's still a long way to go, and I think that's why things like the conferences are so important, because it's outside agency. Because there's still, even when the resources are there in the agency, there's still that big reluctance for a cop or a firefighter to ask for help. One question I had is, do you guys utilize chaplains during the conferences? Super. I may be talking to you guys at some point. I'm working with, I don't know if you've met Mick Yinger. He runs the first responders bridge retreats out of Ohio, and I'm going to be joining them as a chaplain. So I'm looking for every opportunity I can to get involved in that, and because I walked far too long in the dark, and the good Lord has called me to utilize my experience. Again, you know, like what Aaron was saying, we don't like to talk to anybody outside that circle. Firefighters and cops have an inherent mistrust of people who aren't firefighters and cops, especially when it comes to talking about this kind of stuff. So I think the chaplaincy is a really important kind of boots on the ground, first line of contact for a cop or a firefighter. We're not clinicians, but we can sit down with a brother or sister and get them steered toward the professional help that they're going to need. I was very lucky when I finally decided to get the help I need. I went through my current company's EAP, which is generally a crapshoot as far as who you get as a clinician. And I walked into my first appointment and found out my therapist was a retired West Des Moines police officer. So good Lord bless me there. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you guys do use the chaplaincy in the conferences. And once I get more of my training completed, I may be reaching out to you guys to see if I might be able to help out at the conferences.
Yeah, just to let you know, we're working with Steve Click yeah, and so we will be having another conference in Columbus. Hopefully we're shooting for next September, so we'll be back there. We had a conference there in 2019, and so we're working with him to get back to that area.
Awesome. I'm taking my second level peer support chaplain training here next Friday. And my level 3 hopefully in the next couple of months. So maybe by the time you guys come around to the Midwest again, I'll be able to help out. That'd be awesome. I'd love it. I'd love the opportunity.
Perfect. Yeah. And you know, I mean, just to tag on to what you were saying is, I think that, I mean, we definitely have come far, right, from 1982, but we're moving in the right direction, but there are still a lot of agencies that don't have peer support, right, and or have anything. EAP, people usually have EAP, but a lot of people don't trust the EAP also because they, it's part of the department, or I've heard some horror stories about that, even though they're not supposed to let anybody know. EAP is supposed to be confidential. So, and then peer support sometimes is hard because, depending on how big your agency is. You know, some people will use peer support if there's a lot of peer supporters, but some people, if you have a small department, you know, you were saying that cops and firefighters don't trust anybody. Well, they don't even trust each other. So, so sometimes that's difficult. When we were in Boston last week, they have like a peer support network. So you can actually reach out to peer supporters outside of your agency, which I think is awesome. Just because, you know, it's an outside confidential resource that you can trust. And then now they have, you know, Cop Line and all these confidential hotlines. I mean, be careful of which ones you call, just do your homework, I'm saying. But, you know, there are some great organizations out there, and there are a lot of resources. And, you know, the nice thing about the conferences is everywhere we go, we find local resources and we have national resources. So we have a list of resources that we can provide to people, although we still ask people to vet them because resources change, nonprofit boards change. You know, it's something that you have to do your homework on and find the right fit for you. Because just like I said, you know, or Daniel read my little sentence at the beginning, it's there's not a one size fits all. You have to find what works for you, and you have to keep on trying and not just, you know, oh, okay, I'm going to go to therapy and well, that didn't work. And so I'm going to give up. Right. I mean, there's different things like yoga and meditation and, you know, different tools. So we really encourage people just to keep on searching to find what is the right fit. And you also touched on counselors and not trusting. There are a lot of culturally competent counselors or therapists now. And that's great that they're actually, you know, riding along with folks that are, you know, boots on the ground, doing the job and learning what it is that we endure to help us. Because like I said, there's a lot of people out there that want to be a resource and want to help. We just need a lot more. So thanks to all the agencies and or organizations that are popping up that are on the same mission, because there shouldn't be these little empires. We should all be working towards the same goal and helping one another. So.
Absolutely.
Yep. And this little tribe here is the embodiment of that sentence. For me, I found EMDR therapy, which was an absolute lifesaver. But I think if you ask all the people on this call right now, you'd get a lot of variety of what types of therapies worked well for them. So that's another great thing about this group is such a wide variety of experience and a wide variety of ways that we all seem to have found the help we needed. It's the shit magnet. Hey, Chris.
What's up, guys? Made it finally.
Going. Couple more hands up. Brenda, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to comment really quickly. Stop me if I go on a tangent. I know you mentioned the kids. You know, as a nurse, we say, you know, everybody thinks about the patient and they forget about the caregiver. And that's a big push where everybody's so worried about the patient. What about the person that's taking care of the patient? What about them? And I know I worked a school event with kids that happened to be the day after the Uvalde shooting. And one of the conversations I had with staff who was in tears. She said, you know, because we knew we were all there for the kids that day. And one of the teachers cry to me and she said, you know, everyone's there for the kids, but who's there for us? You know, and it was a heavy, few simple words, but it was so heavy. And I think, you know, the nurse in me always worries about the caregiver and the kids. But let me just disclose, you know, as a nurse, I am a former wife of a federal Leo. So I kind of have it from all different views. I also happen to have my own struggles. I also happen to have my own health issues. So I see the views as a nurse. And then now I'm trying to still learn to see the views as a patient. So I get the views from all over, but it's interesting. I just worked an event this past weekend with law enforcement, and because when I talk to the guys or the girls that are there, and because I am a nurse, even though I'm not a nurse there in that role, but because I am a nurse, I'm privy to a lot of different conversations that the guys trust me with that they don't trust others with, because I am a nurse. And one of the topics that came up was that, and I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised, was that the guys didn't want their wives there. They didn't want their wives involved, and they didn't want their family there because they wanted that away time from that. When events were going on with law enforcement, they wanted to have their private time away. And to put it bluntly, I get my wife all day long. I don't want that shit. I want time away. I want to be with the guys. Let me have my own damn time, and don't bring the wives here. And so it was, it was a harsh thing, but okay, as the ex-wife, I get it. I used to need my own time, but as my nurse, I understand the relation problems. We need to bring it together. Part of it is because of the mental health and the wellness. And so, but it was really interesting to hear both views. When I hear the officers blame their kids this, their kids that, my kid this, my kid that, and I have to flip it and say, well, have you thought about how difficult it is to be a child of a law enforcement officer? Have you told your child that they're not supposed to tell anyone what their dad does? Have you thought about when they're in school, what are they supposed to say? There's so many different views in different ways. Or when the guys come to me and ask me, where to go, like you mentioned, they don't want to go to peer support. They want outside referrals. Do I understand that? Absolutely. I worked in the medical field. I know when I went in for help, I was told, don't tell anyone your career is going to be over. I also know they sent me to support groups. They wanted me to go to support groups. And I said, I'll be damned. I'm not going to those support groups. I'm going to see patients that I know that I refer in those support groups. When I was hospitalized, I said, I can't be here. My patients are here. You need to move me somewhere else. And they said, no, this is where you're going to be. Sure enough, I had a family come in and say, you look so familiar. How do we know you? I didn't say it, but you know me because I take care of your family member that's here, so there's so much confidentiality that I get it. We don't want to trust. I get it. As the nurse, I get it. I want you to trust me. But as the patient, I don't trust y'all. And so there's so many different avenues that we have to come at it. And I'm really glad that you are including the families, even though there's guys that don't want the families included. So that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Barry.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was that I think, my son is in the police in Australia, and I watch him. He's been in there a couple of years. Now, when I was at war, it had a beginning and an end in the 70s. You were at the tail end of sort of Vietnam and in Rhodesia, and we just blasted into life, making an awful mess. But we were quite unconscious, and we only got to our 60s and realized that perhaps our lives were a little bit skewed. But I watch my son, and I see how little work is being given to him as a policeman to help him understand the territory that he's moving into. I mean, as you guys have said, every day my son goes out on the streets, he goes out to war, potentially, with all the skill sets he needs and the impacts it has on him. I think what concerns me, especially with the first responders, and I see it with him, is that the impact of getting out there every day, it's like a trickle of silt going into a pond. It seeps into your bones, into your marrow, into your soul, and you don't really feel it. You can't really track the story you bring back into your wives and into your children. And the problem is, I see how nothing is being done to help them understand this journey. We teach people to drive cars, and we mentor them and tell them what can happen if. But my son has no knowledge of that. And when you eventually become aware of, you wake up one day and you realize that this little seepage has now become a major issue, and it's taken over your thinking, your feeling, and your behavior, and you are bringing it back home. And the story and the presence that you guys have said, when you get back home, we're putting our partners into war and they walk on eggshells and hypervigilance. And as you said, Aaron, our children become trained to be situationally alert. And there's just not enough. I can't speak about the States, but I don't think there's enough done. I find here the psychologists are about as good as nothing, because they're little basic tools and their lack of cultural awareness about these extraordinary people they're sitting with is nothing short of stupid and annoys the hell out of me. And I think they exacerbate the problem rather than create the solution. But we need to start early. We need to, and I think the point taken is that the wives do need help, the kids need help, and the first responders need to know what that map looks like so they can track themselves from year to year to year, right from day one. So I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that, but that is something that does concern the hell out of me.
Absolutely. David.
Shawn and Jeff, thank you guys for, first of all, joining us tonight, but for the most part, more than that, thank you for all that you do to support our shared family in the law enforcement community. The work that you guys do is truly unbelievable. And I've been following you guys for a while. I retired January 1st of 2020, and you were one of the first organizations that came into my sphere of influence when I was trying to see not only what was next, but how I stopped my own downward spiral and figure my way out of that spiral back up again. One of the two things that brought me to a place of confidence, not only to heal myself, but to heal it through talking about my own journey, was this platform here at the Power of Our Story. Sarah was one of the first people to truly benefit where I am today. So Sarah, you and I have this conversation often, so thank you for that. And I'm so happy to have you guys as part of our family here at the Power of Our Story. The other piece of my success was Resilient Minds on the Front Lines, which I think you guys are connected with Rob Sepiol and Mike Pellegrino and D as well. If Jeff's kind of like looking at you, like maybe not, but they've been the other half of my success. And I was also trained as an RPO and MRT through the state of New Jersey. We have a great resiliency program here in New Jersey. And if there's anything I can do to support you guys and the great work that you do, I'd be happy to find a way to do that for you. But thank you for all that you do to make the lives of so many people better. That's the name of the game. And I think Jeff said it best, to save one life is to save the world. It's an old biblical saying, right? So thank you guys for everything you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
Sarah? We'll finish now with you.
I just wanted to thank you also, Shawn and Jeff. I really do feel like you've got your people right here too. I mean, I think there's so much, you've got the hearts that really do want to be part of the solution in all this. And it just sounds like you're doing really great things in pulling people together and bringing solutions. And then I also wanted to get back to Barry. One of the things that I found when I first kind of started exploring this arena with veterans, what was so heartbreaking to me is the fact that a lot of the active duty or veterans themselves did not understand their trauma. And then you have the wives that have no idea what's going on either. Just the whole lack of education. And so I really love the book and the awareness that you bring, Barry. And I think people are starting in this group too. A couple people have talked about again, hopping on that idea of helping the kids and bringing in the wives. And I think that's going to be like the next step, like even for our group. So just that holistic healing, getting everybody on board to understanding what is happening. So thanks you all.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, I see that I'm on the website. Like I said, they were just in Boston. They're coming up to Anchorage, Alaska in October, Cobb County, Georgia in November. Again, the highlight of the season will be December in Tempe, Arizona. Orlando, Florida in January. I don't know how to say this. Coeur d'Alene in Idaho.
Coeur d'Alene
in Idaho in February. Ocean City, Maryland in March next year, and Ventura, California in April of next year. That's what's on the website. And we've talked about challenge coins before on this program, and I would like to let you know that I do have a one RC challenge coin that I picked up at last year's conference.
You have the old one. I'll give you
Oh, I'm gonna have to get a new one. Well, maybe I'll get a new one as a speaker. I don't know. So again, thank you both for sharing your story and doing what you do and it's not only the first responders that they're helping, their conferences are for everybody. Corrections, dispatch, military, veterans, police, fire, EMS, so it's for everybody, chaplains, everybody. And again, the families, spouses, adult family members. So they're great. They're reasonably priced. You get a lot of good information in 2 days of training. There's usually a little social hour, little mixer on day one. And there's also scholarships available for anybody who feels that they, maybe they can't afford that price. So I'm sure if you reach out to Shawn or Jeff and their crew that helps them run the organization, that they will be able to help you if you want to attend. Again, December 1st and 2nd, Tempe, Arizona, the highlight of the season. Shawn and Jeff, if you guys want to share any last tidbits or anything, if not, I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Sarah and I were talking, when we originally had a conversation, I know that there's a lot of people that are sharing on this platform. And so if anybody is interested in speaking at our conferences, I know some of you have filled out online speaker forms, but on our website, we have an online speaker form, and we like people to share their personal stories as well as their post-traumatic growth. I think that's an important part of the conference is sharing, what you went through, but what got you through it, right? And not just, hi, my name is, but the different tools that people use like EMDR and other things. So some educational piece. So yeah, if anybody is interested in speaking, please fill out our online speaker form. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I can't thank you guys enough for this platform and what you guys are doing. And again, if, we all need to work together to help our everyday heroes. So.
Absolutely. And I apologize, Paul, I see your hand is up.
I first want to say thank you to Jeff for the vulnerability, for the courage that it took to do that. I appreciate that very much. I'm fortunate in that I have not had to experience PTS. I will tell you honestly that at one point I decided that I was drinking way more than I should. And this was back in the days when if you told somebody in your department that you were having a problem, it was adios. Yeah, literally that fast. Your name came off the mailbox and you were gone. So I went out and bought an organ and taught myself to play it. And that relaxed me enough that I could go to sleep at night and have a full night's sleep. And to this day, I will maybe have a glass of wine at a family celebration or something like that, but that's pretty much the limit of it. My wife and I tease each other that we are cheap dates.
All right. Well, I think we had a great conversation. Again, thank you, Shawn and Jeff, and Miss Sarah. I toss it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. You do such a great job in facilitating. Shawn and Jeff, it